Hello, welcome back again to chapter 10, Sentential Categories. So in this chapter, Sentential Categories, definitely we're going to talk about sentence and we're going to learn about how to differentiate each sentence types. Okay, so let's talk about sentential category. What can be classified as sentence? So sentence is a group of words again. It contains a subject and a predicate, but it's different from clause in the way that in sentence, if it's going to be the sentence, it must express a complete thought. Okay, and in one sentence it might contain just one clause, one independent clause, or in one sentence it might have like many clauses in that. So let's have a look at the four types of sentences, which are simple sentence, compound sentence, complex, and compound complex sentence. So the key main thing that we can use to differentiate the types of phrase is that we differentiate the types of the sentence depending on the clause, the number, and the types of the clause that we have in that sentence. So to remind you guys again, we have two types of clause: independent clause and dependent clause. Okay, so if you have this one, the full body, the full body refer to independent clause, and the half body refer to the dependent clause since it's not complete. Okay, so if you have like full main body, it means that you have one independent clause. If you have only one independent clause, it is simple sentence. But if you have like two or more than two independent clause, we classify it as compound sentence. But if you have just only one independent clause, and you have one or can be more dependent clause, it is a complex sentence. But once you have two independent clause and like one or more than one dependent clause, it is compound complex sentence. Okay, so be careful. The number of the clause in that sentence will tell you the types of the sentence. So one independent only, simple sentence. Two independent, compound. Can be more than two, but if they are all independent, it is the compound sentence. And complex sentence only, okay, you can have just only one independent and can be matched with one or more than one dependent, it is complex sentence. And next, compound complex sentence is two or more than two independent, and then it matched with one or more than one dependent, it is compound complex sentence. So let's have a look at the example of simple sentence. As I mentioned before, simple sentence, it is the sentence that consists of one independent clause only. For example, like some students like to study in the morning. So some student is a subject and like to study in the morning is a predicate part. So since we have one subject and one predicate part, it is the independent clause and it is simple sentence. Number two, Juan and Arturo play football every afternoon. So Juan and Arturo is the subject part and play football every afternoon. It is predicate part. So altogether, it is just one independent clause. Or Alicia goes to the library and studies every day. So in this case, we have just one subject, Alicia, and we have combination of verb phrase go to the library and studies every day. Since we have just one subject like this, it is just one independent clause, so they are all simple sentence. However, whenever you split the subject into like this, like one Alicia and two Alicia, so it means that we have subject that can pair up with our predicate, like two subject and pair up with the predicate. So it's not just the simple sentence anymore, it's the compound sentence. So since we talk about compound sentence, let's move to its type. Compound sentence is a sentence that consists of two or more independent clauses. So yeah, there must be all independent clauses. Okay, so compound sentence, for example, I try to speak Spanish and my friend tried to speak English. So I try to speak Spanish is the independent clause, the first independent clause. The first independent clause, and my friend tried to speak English. My friend tried to speak English. It is the second independent clause. So altogether, since we have two independent clauses, it is the compound sentence. Number 5, Pete played football, but Dear went shopping. So Pete played football, it is the first independent clause. Dear went shopping, it is second independent clause. Altogether, it is just the compound sentence. Or number 6, you can take my car, the first independent clause. You will have to bring it back tomorrow, the second independent clause. I've got to go to the airport, the third independent clause. Altogether, since we have 3 independent clauses here, it is the compound sentence. Simple as that. If you have 2 independent clause or more than 2, and like all clauses there, they are independent clause. It is the compound sentence. Next, let's move to complex sentence. A complex sentence, as I mentioned before, a complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more subordinate clause. But the main idea here is that just one independent clause only that match with one or more than one dependent clause. For example, here, like, okay, how the thief got into the room is still unknown. Okay, so how the thief got into the room is the dependent clause. And how the thief got into the room is still unknown. The whole sentence, we classify it as independent clause. So as you can see, how the thief got into the room is a nominal clause. The dependent clause functioning as a nominal clause, functioning as a subject in this independent clause. So altogether, it is the complex sentence. And number 8, he said that he will come here again tomorrow. So that he will come again tomorrow, it is dependent clause. And he said that he will come again tomorrow is the independent clause. Altogether, it is complex sentence. Be careful. If it is nominal clause, we will not cut it off from independent clause, since nominal clause functioning as the main important structure in the independent clause, either it is subject or object, like in the previous example and this example. So whenever you answer about the independent clause, we will not ignore the nominal clause that we can find there. And next, the thief stole the television which I just bought yesterday. So which I just bought yesterday is the dependent clause, functioning as the adjectival clause that modify the noun television. And since in this case, which I just bought, it is a dependent clause that functioning as the adjectival clause. So it's just a modifier. So whenever you analyze the independent clause, we can remove it out. So independent clause in this case will be the thief stole the television. And it is a complex sentence since we have one independent clause and one dependent clause. And next, the man that she married was accused as a murderer. So that she married is the dependent clause functioning as adjectival clause that modify man. And since it is adjectival clause, right? So whenever you answer independent, we can cut it off, like the man was accused as the murderer. And another example, like adverbial clause that we can find in the complex sentence, like after they finished studying, Juan and Maria went to the movies. So independent clause is Juan and Maria went to the movie, and dependent clause is after they finished studying. Or the students are studying because they have a test tomorrow. So independent clause is the students are studying, and dependent clause is because they have a test tomorrow. So as you can see here, because they have a test tomorrow, it is the adverbial clause that functioning as the modifier of the whole independent clause in front of it. The students are studying. And in this complex sentence, then we have one independent clause and one dependent clause. So as you can see, just for like dependent clause functioning as nominal clause, that's the only case that we will count dependent as one structure, one feature in the independent clause, because we cannot ignore it, since nominal clause it function as the very important structure in the independent clause. There we can ignore it since it function as like subject, sometimes objects, or object of preposition. So we cannot ignore nominal clause whenever we answer about independent clause there. And the last type is the compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence consists of two independent clause and one subordinate clause. Some student might ask me that can I have 3 independent clause and 2 subordinate clause? Definitely yes. You still count it as compound complex sentence as long as there are at least 2 independent clauses and 1 subordinate clause. Can be much more. Here's the example. I don't have much money left, yet I want to go to the movies tonight because everyone is talking about the new movie. So I don't have much money left is the first independent clause, yet I want to go to the movies tonight. So I want to go to the movie tonight. It is the second independent clause, and because everyone is talking about that new movie, it is the first dependent clause. Since we have 2 independent clause, I don't have much money left. I want to go to the movies tonight, and we have 1 dependent clause because everyone is talking about that new movie. Don't forget to count because in your dependent clause as well. So in the dependent clause, you will count the conjunction in that, but not for the independent clause. So 2 independent clause and 1 dependent clause. It is compound complex sentence. Next, the pupils light up when the bell rings and someone monitors them while they go to their classroom. So we have the first independent clause, the pupils light up, and we have dependent clause when the bell rings, and we have independent clause like someone monitors them. The second independent clause, and here we go, we have the second dependent clause why they go to the classroom. So since we have 2 independent clause, and in this case so special, we have 2 dependent clause, so we can count it as compound complex sentence. And next, after the storm finally subsided, we held a long discussion to decide whether we should continue up the mountain, but several in the group wanted to return to the camp, so some of us continued up the mountain even though some of us went back down the camp. So we have after the storm had finally subsided, it is the first independent clause. We held a long discussion to decide, it is the first independent clause. Whether we should continue up the mountain, it is a second dependent clause. But several in the group wanted to return to the camp, it is the second independent clause. And so some of us continue up the mountain, it is the third independent clause, and we have the third dependent clause as well, even though some of us went back down the camp. So we have 3 dependent clause and 3 independent clause. I know, just listen to me, it might not help you guys to understand and be able to differentiate each type of the sentence, each type of the clause, each type of phrases. So in your Google Classroom, do we have Google Classroom? In your Google Classroom, I have uploaded exercises to help you to review phrases, clauses, and sentential. And also I already upload the answer keys with that. So please find it in your Google Classroom and practice by yourself. And if you have any question, we're going to discuss in the class next week. So good luck and happy Songkran holiday. See you.